Hi, everybody, and welcome to the OutMarket.Pro podcast. I'm your host, Mark Stein. Today, I'd like to welcome Russ Terry. Um, he's a passionate advocate for sustainable energy, specifically solar. With 15 years in the military and extensive contract work afterwards, he now drives change in the solar industry, empowering homeowners with energy independence and cost savings. We'll explore his journey from military service to solar energy, and I'm really happy to have Russ with me on the podcast. Welcome, Russ.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be on here and get to talk about solar energy and spend the hour kind of talking to you.
Great. So here's the Thrive intro.
Okay.
So welcome everybody to the Thrive Co-Living Communities podcast. I'm your host, Mark Stein. Here we highlight innovative shaping industries that are all about empowering people and empowering other businesses. Today I have with me as my guest, Russ Terry, a passionate advocate for sustainable energy. He's had 15 years in the military and also as a contractor. He now drives change with the solar industry, empowering homeowners with energy independence and cost savings. We'll explore his journey from military service to solar energy in this podcast. And I'm really excited to have him here. As you probably know, I'm a huge advocate of solar and sustainability. So I'm really glad to have him with me. So glad to have you, Russ. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here and talk about solar. And also just kind of spend this hour going over it with you.
Great. So let's start just briefly with your business. What's your company name? And tell us a little bit, a thumbnail sketch about what you do. We'll go into more details of solar later, but talk a little bit about the business, and then we'll back up and talk about your background.
Okay, great. My company's name is Solar Power Tampa Bay. And what we do is we primarily focus on commercial and residential solar systems, really just helping empower homeowners and business owners and taking control of their energy future. Right now, we're at historically high electricity rates here in Florida, and it's really difficult on people's budgets. On regular average Americans, it's just hard to keep up. And so what we're doing is really helping people make that transition, make an investment in their home and their future, and take back control those energy costs, so that they're not just subject to the utility companies' decisions on how they're going to charge and how they're going to do.
Awesome. So talk about your journey. And I know that you had a nice stint in the military. Talk about a little bit about that and then trace us up to today.
But I joined the military after when I was 19. I just graduated high school and spent about the first year of college, and just knew I was kind of looking for something different. I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and just looking for something different to do. And I didn't know, I'm 19. You don't know anything when you're 19. So it was really a great opportunity for me, kind of getting in, just getting out to see a lot of different places, have a lot of different experiences that I just never otherwise would have had. And it's an experience that really just helped me grow into myself, into a confident person who just learned how to handle different situations. The amount of different things I've had to deal with in the military, and then being a contractor, working overseas mostly, it's just given me a lot of adaptability. There's been a lot of situations that I've been thrown into that it's just I have no idea how to handle this, and we just work through it one step at a time. And that's all the situations and work is a little bit different. That's really the key behind every single assignment that I had and job that I had working in the defense sector was, usually got thrown in somewhere where I wasn't quite sure how to do things, and we just figured it out and worked through how to be better at it, and then how to go from not really knowing what I'm doing to being really good at it. Uh, and it was just it's an experience that's really shaped who I am, and really helped me develop into somebody who's just not scared to jump into different things, and that's really helped me as I got to the point to where I want to get out of the defense sector. Kind of want to get out on my own and go into just really the civilian marketplace and find my own way there. It's something that really helped me have the confidence to branch into something that I hadn't done before, which was solar. I got my first start in solar in 2021, kind of doing sales with a company and working through that and figuring it out, and getting into really just getting into solar sales, which is, it's a difficult thing getting into sales, in general. If you haven't done it before, it can be hard going around and really, understanding the process and understanding, that really a good salesperson isn't somebody who's trying to sell their product to somebody, as somebody who's helping see a person or a business that has a problem, and you're really bringing the solution to them, and helping see what that solution is. And I think that's the biggest difference in my mindset as I learned how to really go through the solar industry is understand I'm not trying to go get somebody to buy a system. I'm really trying to find somebody who needs this, somebody who this is going to help, especially now as energy rates are so high, and there's so many people struggling month to month as it is, and understanding that I have an opportunity in a way to help those people not be subject to inflation, not be subject to rate increases, which are, I mean, already on the horizon right now. If you live in the Tampa area, it's looking at a 12 and 21% increases between Duke and Tico, respectively, for 2025, 6 and 7. Um, and just understand that I'm able to come here and help these people. The hard part is being in in the industry now that I'm seeing is that there are so many solar companies who've been out just kind of doing a lot of stuff. It's difficult to really help some people understand that it's a real thing and it really does help. And being the solar company who is there to help and is okay if maybe it's not what somebody wants, like that's okay, but just go find the next person who is struggling and help them and help solve their problem.
I think so much of it is education. And I should say that I was in the solar energy industry, probably before you were born, in the late 70s. When were you born?
89.
Okay, so I was. And I think education is key. And I'll take you to another similar situation. We've got close to home, my home, we've got a washer that's about to age out, so to speak. And I've got a guy at one of the dealers that's just really knowledgeable about all the brands. And I gave him my specifications and the problems we're having. And he said, yeah, definitely. Here are two. And here's the pros of this one, the pros of that one, drawbacks, etc. And he was not focused on selling me anything. And I think part of that is being comfortable with what we have and seeing life from a perspective of abundance. Then we're not so needy and people aren't feeling like we're trying to reel them in. But he really focused on information and educating me so that I can make the right decision. And I think that's probably the same charge that you have if you're truly focused, as you say, on dealing with your clients' needs, interests, etc. It's also amazing to me how many people doubt that the sun works, especially here in Florida. We have how many sunny days do we average here in Tampa Bay? You probably know that.
I think it's in the 200s. It's in the low 200s on average.
So, and even when it's cloudy, the sun's breaking through most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so it's it's interesting that people doubt something that is such a fixture in our lives. And I understand it if you live in Minnesota or Washington State, where they go days and weeks without seeing the sun, even though you still get solar energy that could power photovoltaics. I can understand their doubts, but not here.
Right.
So, um, so talk a little bit. Your focus is solar electricity,
Mm.
solar electric systems. Let's give the audience some basics on how it works. Not going into tremendous detail, but enough detail to know the different components, and then talk about some of the benefits of going solar.
Okay. Yeah. So typically the way a solar system works, you have the solar panels, which I think are pretty easily recognizable. And each of those, I think most people are probably used to seeing a panel where you see the lines and you can kind of see it broken down. Each of those little squares or rectangles you see on a solar panel, that's what's actually it's called the solar cell. And that's where you actually get all the energy. All the energy is made in each individual one of those cells, that make up the panel. And typically what happens then is your energy is taken down from the panel into what's called an inverter. And then from the inverter goes into your electric panel. And that's where it's distributed through your house. Or if you're producing more electricity than what you're using in your home, then it pushes that back out to the grid. And that's really the basics in the solar, and like a residential solar system. There's not a ton of components involved. It's really a pretty simple system, all in all. Now there could be more things if you have a home backup system. We have batteries such as like the Tesla Power Walls, or Enphase has some of their own batteries. There's several companies that have other home backup systems, and so there's some more equipment and components if you have more than just your solar system. But solar system by itself is pretty simple. Not a ton of components, and works really reliably.
Why would you want a battery backup?
So you'd want a battery backup. Couple big reasons. Number one, if you're looking for a home backup system, right? Like when the power's down, one thing to know, if you have solar system on your house and you don't have a battery backup, that means you're still tied into the grid. So when the grid is down, your solar's down too. So that means you don't have electricity if the rest of the grid's down. Now, the benefit of battery brings is that allows your house to still be running on a full backup, just like a generator would. I think a lot of people are pretty familiar with using generator backups, for to have electricity when the power's down. A big benefit to a solar battery bank, to a solar system and a battery bank put together, is if the power does go down or the grid goes down, you're not trying to rush to the gas station to get fuel to put in your generator, because maybe you didn't know a storm was coming in, maybe you didn't know it was going to be so severe, maybe you just weren't prepared for what level it is, and now you're 100 people deep in a line to get fuel and hoping you get what you need, or you get home before the storm's over, or before the storm hits. Where a battery backup, number one, just helps you. It helps you not have to have that worry. You can make it through the storm. You already got your battery charged, and now when the power goes out, you just you typically anymore just auto switches over, and then the next day you've still got power, and it continues to charge up your battery, and just really it's one of the most easy to use, hands free really systems to have a full home backup. And there's
Batteries have really changed just in the last few years with Tesla's Powerwall. Can you describe what battery backups used to look like before Powerwalls, and then what a Powerwall looks like in terms of its profile and where you place it and that sort of thing?
Sure. So used to the main and almost only source for battery backups was really a battery bank full of kind of like the lead acid batteries. You've got to have those outside. They've got to be kind of ventilated. You do run a risk if you overpower them, or if, something goes wrong. I mean, that's still, that acid that's in those batteries, and you run some risks of, if those blew up or if they leaked or something happened, those are not things that you want to be close to when something bad's going on. The difference in the Tesla Powerwall, it's a lithium ion based battery. It's pretty low profile, sits on your wall. Where a traditional battery bank it'd be much bigger and be several batteries kind of put inside of it. This Tesla Powerwall, which has just really changed the game. I mean, it's one kind of low profile battery you mount on your wall or in your garage. You still don't put it in your living spaces, but like you can have it inside. You have less worry about needing it ventilated or needing any kind of real issue. It's just much safer, easier to have around, and it's really just made a huge difference in the equipment you have to have and what you have to do to safeguard it and safeguard yourself and your family from it.
I haven't seen one in the wild, but it looks like about 3 feet wide by maybe 6 feet tall, maybe less. Do you know what the rough dimensions are?
Let me see. I can pull that up, but it's definitely it's shorter than that. So yeah, maybe about 3 foot wide, maybe about 4.5 foot deep. I can look
No,
those.
that would be tall because it's only about
Yeah,
what,
tall,
six
tall.
inches, six
Yep.
inches deep.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you can mount them on top of one another.
Correct.
Not, well, you could do them side by side, but you can just have two like wafers, so that it's taking up the same footprint, maybe a foot deep, right?
Right.
Um, so anybody that's interested in surviving a storm and keeping electricity flowing, and here, the storm's likely to pass in a day. And then the next day it's going to be bright and sunny, and everybody around you will be shit out of luck and out of power. But you can just keep rolling.
Mhm.
Let's see, another recent application, since we're talking about Tesla, is to be able to power your Tesla electric cars with a power bank, not a power bank, with a Tesla charger at your home, either in your garage or carport, and power that with your solar electric system. Is that right?
You mean charging your car from your solar?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because you're really just plugging your car into, your house, which if it's powered by solar, then your car's also going to be, even if the grid's down, and you need to charge your car during maybe a power outage and you can't find a supercharger, you can't find any other places around town that have charging, you'll still be able to charge your car because you have a battery backup system and it's going to be able to handle plugging that in and charging your car.
Do you know, and I know I'm hitting you with some questions cold, but do you know the approximate cost of charging of electric vehicle? I want to say,
So
go
from
ahead.
the estimates I know, it's about per month is about 350 to 400 kilowatt hours a month. So in Florida, let's say, because I know you're on Duke, which is roughly somewhere between 19 and 20 cents a kilowatt hour. That would be about $80 a month.
So
So
that's significant.
I mean that's a pretty big power bump for one car.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Um, let's see. So if they were more interested in saving money on their electric bill, not necessarily focused on battery backup, then they may just want to tie to the grid and not have a battery. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And that does give you an opportunity to have the most, direct and immediate upfront savings. As long as you get with a good either loan option or lease option, then you can have immediate, month one savings. And we see that through the industry, especially if you're with a great bank like the one we use is Climate First Bank, who has zero dealer fees. So they don't stack anything on top for you. And they actually do the first 6 months, interest free or of just interest, where you pay just interest on your loan when you get it, and that helps during the installation process as things are going through, so you don't have to pay. You're not paying an electric bill and paying a solar bill, separately, where they're both, relatively the same. You don't start paying really your solar bill until your electric bill is already taken care of because you have an installation. So we see that people have a lot of ability to really just trade one bill for another and have your solar bill lower than what your electric bill was. And those solar bills usually set in. So we have a rate, what it's going to be for, the next 20 to 30 years, however long your financing agreement is, you know that you can count on that's what you're going to pay for electricity versus the, power companies who on average go up in Florida 5.26% a year. And like I said earlier, Duke's got a request in with the Florida Public Service Commission to take their rates up 12.4% over the next 3 years. And TECO's got one in to take theirs up just over 21% the next 3 years. So you just see right away how, locking in a rate right now can help people. I mean, number one, you can be paying the same or less than you're paying right now for electricity. And then it's going to protect you for next year when the rates go up again.
A lot of people don't know that the electric companies are mandated to buy excess energy that you produce and feed back into the grid. Talk to everybody about how that works, what it's called, et cetera.
So that program is called net metering. And every electric company is not mandated to do it the same way. The investor-owned electric companies in Florida are mandated to credit you. And this is a big difference between credit and buying the energy from you. So they're mandated to credit you a 1-for-1 rate for any power that you overproduce and push back into the grid. And what that means is basically if it's January, you're not using a ton of energy because you're not using your air conditioner, there's not a lot as much going on for you at home, and you produce 500 kilowatt hours more, then that credits to your account. So when it gets to June and it's 100 degrees in Florida and your air conditioner is pumping hard and you use an extra 500 kilowatts more than what your system produced, now you get those credits and pay those straight to the utility company. And so now your electric bill is still at zero versus versus having to pay something extra. And that's really how solar kind of helps level the playing field. Number one, it gives you an even bill for the whole year, right? So you don't have to worry about your bill going up and down and up and down. You have one flat rate, and you get those excess credits you build in the winter and the fall, and you use those during the summer. Now, the way it does work is at the end of the year, end of the calendar year, the electric company will buy whatever excess you have. So come December, they'll buy whatever excess you have in your account, and they usually pay you a wholesale rate, which is a lot less than the rate that you pay. And they talk about that because there's a lot of money that goes into transporting and storing and all of the infrastructure behind the grid. So yeah, and that's kind of how that net metering process works. And that's one of the really big things about why solar is able to help save people money, is because these big investor-owned utilities are required to do that 1-for-1 credit. Now, if you start getting into some of the other, the co-ops or the smaller utility companies, everybody has their own different net metering policy, and we just have to kind of look at those on a case-by-case basis. just to make sure that it's still worthwhile in that short term with just being connected in the grid for somebody.
So this 1-for-1 credit, let's say you feed them back, at night when the rates are cheaper, and you use more during the day, which is normal. It doesn't matter when you feed it or when you draw down on that credit once you have exhausted your normal usage. It's 1-for-1, so it doesn't, because the rates do vary based on time of day and load and that sort of thing. So you get one kilowatt credit for every 1 kilowatt that you put back in, no matter when it's put in, or when it's pulled out. Is that right?
Now, for some power, like, oh, not every power company is charging every customer in that time of demand structure. You know, like a lot of TECO and Duke customers pay one flat rate for 1,000 kilowatts and under, and then they pay another flat rate for 1,000 kilowatts and over. Now there are programs, like I know TECO has a smart program that does have that, you know, where you pay less in the morning, more for peak hours, and then less like later in the evening. And yeah, so, you know, when you get into some of those, it is, I mean, you pay for the typically, and we have to look at each person's case by case, but typically you pay and get credit for where you produce the energy. So if it's early in the morning, you get that credit. If it's in the peak times, you get that credit.
Okay.
A big thing that's happening, like in California, where the electricity, they changed some of the net metering laws, is people use their batteries as a way to optimize when they're pulling power and when they're not. Some of those power companies aren't mandated to do the same net metering that we are here in Florida. And so people will use their batteries as a way to not pay the peak utility prices, and they'll draw power from the grid only when it's at the lowest rates. So that's a way you can kind of use batteries to offset that kind of same issue.
Mm-hmm. You know, just one tidbit. I heard that the new Tesla Cybertrucks have two-way charging, so they can feed energy back into. You can use that as a backup storage bank when the power goes out. So it charges in both directions. So it can charge the house that you can then draw from.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's a huge benefit. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have one, having a battery plus a vehicle just really gives you extra sense of security in knowing that if you need power, you're going to be able to have it. That's a huge pro for the Cybertruck.
It's pretty crazy just to think about it, that
Yeah.
you're charging you're powering your house with your car,
No, right. Yeah.
So when you're talking to somebody, and you've mentioned some of this throughout our conversation, but summarize for people what the benefits are, and let's talk both sides of the coin. What are some of the drawbacks of having solar as well?
I mean, the benefits number one, it's not maybe my priority of where it is, but number one for most people is you get to save money. It's an investment that you make, and it helps you financially. You get a return on your investment. You get to pay less money, and past the financial benefits of it, right? You're energy independent. You're leaving a smaller carbon footprint. I mean, those are really the three huge benefits, on it. And what we mean when I say energy independent, is you're not reliant on the power company, you're not reliant on the government. You get to make and produce your own power. You are your own power plant, which gives you a lot of ability to, be able to produce and use and do what you need to do, versus if a storm comes through, you're waiting on the power company to prioritize which lines they're going to get up and go in, who's going to do who's going to do that where. Other companies coming in to support So we usually get a big surge somewhere. And that energy independence that you get from being solar or being solar powered is really going to help you not need to worry about what they're doing and going on. It'll be great when it gets back up and you can be back tied to the grid, but in the meantime, you're pretty just good on your own. You're able to use the things that you need to use, and then the carbon footprint, that's huge too, because we only have one Earth, and it's difficult when we haven't treated it the best over the last, really specifically the last 100 years through our industrial, advancements, and kind of how we've learned to use fossil fuels and a lot of the different things that we've used to power most of the cars and airplanes and boats and power companies. We've done a lot of damage to our planet. And this is a way that we can get the energy and get the things that we want and really significantly reduce that impact that we have.
And I moved here to Florida from Kentucky, and
Mhm.
most of Kentucky's power is generated by coal, which can't be nastier. Um, it did strike me as ironic before I started looking into solar that you might power an electric vehicle with coal. It's not very environmentally friendly. But my understanding is that most electricity that's generated here in Florida is done by burning natural gas. Is that true?
Correct. Yes, that is true. I want to say somewhere in the 60% of our power at our major power plants use natural gas to produce it.
And so the power increases, the electricity rate increases, as I understand it, are mainly due to increases as well.
So I didn't catch all of that. It kind of froze up on me a little bit, but I think you're
Okay.
talking about, the electricity rates increase as the natural gas rate increases. And
Right.
that's true. That was a huge part during COVID of what drove our electricity prices like through the roof. I mean, it went up. Electricity prices went up over 40% here in the Tampa Bay, the greater Tampa Bay area, mostly because the natural gas prices quadrupled, during that period, which just, I mean, shot our energy through the roof. And so we are, not only are we at the whim of the electric company, and the prices that they set and get approved, we're also at the whim of the market. So if the natural gas market goes up, I mean, there's just nothing we can do about it. We're going to have to pay for that. The electric company doesn't take that doesn't take that hit. So we're stuck at wherever it's at. That's just is what it is. We can't do anything about it. Which is a big benefit to going solar is you're not stuck at the whim of the market.
Do you know if that 40% increase during COVID went down?
Um,
Usually prices go up, but they don't go down.
Well, so I'll tell you what's funny about what's going on right now is the fuel prices have went down. So if you look at your bills, you'll see, there's usually two charges here. We have like an energy charge and a fuel charge. You'll see the energy charges have went up, but the fuel charges went down.
Okay.
So that's kind of what's happening right now with Tico and Duke is, they're trying to take their energy, their actual electricity producing charges up now that the natural gas prices are going down and we're paying less for fuel.
Mhm.
But yeah, you do see we have seen the prices dip a little bit. Not your electricity prices, just your fuel prices have went down.
Okay.
So people in the last year, I feel like you've probably seen your bills like going down a little bit, and that's really what it's from.
Okay. What are the what are the energy companies, Duke and Tico? Is that the other one? I'm not familiar with that.
Tampa
How do
Electric.
they seem to relate to solar, just based on what you've seen and heard? Are they neutral? Do they discourage it? How do they seem to view it?
I mean, that's one I don't see any policies to discourage solar. Like I know what some power companies will do to discourage solar is they'll have a much higher um, base fee, because every electric company has a, minimum charge for every customer that you got to pay. Everybody hooked up to the grid has to pay. And you see those have come up. And Duke specifically has, they have a $30 minimum fee, but it's only $30 if you don't use their power. It's $13 if you use their power and then use $17 of their power, then it kind of makes up for that $30 charge. So that is one thing that Duke specifically does. It, disincentivizes a little bit, makes it just a little more expensive to be on solar.
Mhm.
But typically, when you really see a power company trying to discourage solar, you'll see really big minimum customer fees and less of what you use for your actual energy. Um, but I don't overall see any strong leaning one way or another versus either those two power companies specifically. Duke has a little bit of that in their minimum charge, like I talked about, but all in all, they seem, I mean, I would say somewhat neutral. I mean, obviously, solar kind of cuts into their margins. So it doesn't seem as advantageous for them to have a lot of people go in solar.
Yeah. And in Texas and in California, where they have load problems, um, I think that some of the solar, and I believe Tesla's organizing some of this, where people have a cluster of people have battery banks. I think that that is sort of modulating the impact of rise and fall of demand, like during peak heating, peak cooling seasons, and that sort of thing. So eventually, when more and more people have it, especially with battery backup, um, they may be able to tap some of that energy and spread it around so that fewer people are out. I think adoption has to pick up more for that to be a general case. Let's talk about any drawbacks of having solar. Um, just to be real with people, what would be the major reasons not to do solar?
So a lot of the reasons people find to not do solar or really kind of scares them off of it is when they get locked in, they feel like they're locked into a long agreement, because typically unless you can pay upfront, which is difficult for most people, then your options are either to get a loan for the solar or to get a what we call a lease where you really just pay for your electricity. And those are longer term, anywhere from 10 to 30-year agreements. Right. And that kind of really scares somebody saying, hey, man, I don't want to sign a 30-year deal. Um, and most of those, as you get in and are around them, most of those are pretty easy to either transfer, you get a new one for a new homeowner. Really not as big of a deal. But then after that, some of the other downsides, right? If it's not sunny, if we have a couple weeks where it's not sunny, I mean, you're just not producing. So then you're still having to pay. You're still paying your solar bill, but you're still having to pay the energy company. Um, that's a lot less likely here in Florida. I mean, it could happen in, maybe a storm. Even during a stormy week, you're still going to generate some power. Even when it's not sunny, you still generate power during the day with your solar system. It's just a difference in where the energy comes from. So, I mean, a lot of it will come through the atmosphere and hit the clouds and scatter a little bit. So it's a little less direct than if it was a sunny day. But I mean, that could be a drawback. Another drawback is how you mount it. So typically, the least expensive option is to mount it directly on a roof. I know people do have legitimate concerns about having people on their roof and putting a system to install it on your roof. There could be leaks, and you'll hear stories. I've heard tons of stories of people telling me, where they had a contractor who didn't do a very good job on, securing and sealing the roof from some of those penetrations. And that's a legitimate concern. That's a legitimate thing that could happen if you don't have a quality company do your installation, on your roof. Like that could be a really difficult situation to have to go through. It could ruin parts of your roof and your attic, your house. That's why it's just important to have a quality company, do a little bit of research, make sure that people doing your installation know what they're doing. Now, that's not as prevalent today as it used to be because we have really a twofold system to make sure that that doesn't work now. I mean, most solar installations, they use it's called like metal flashing, which puts a waterproof right around the penetration. And they'll also go ahead and do like a waterproofing around that too. So you really, I mean, it's not necessary, but it's a redundant way to make sure that you don't have uh, any kind of holes or issues in your roof.
Mhm.
And some people they just can't put anything on the roof because it'll void their roof warranty. And so they're not able to do that. So then we have to look into ground mounts or some other type of way to mount their solar system. And depending on that, it could be a little bit more expensive. So those are some of the reasons why to not do it. Uh,
What about hurricanes? If I've got solar on my roof and a hurricane comes through and rips it off, what are my options?
so typically your panels are going to be covered by your homeowner's insurance. So if a hurricane comes in, your insurance is typically going to be able to take care of it. If you have a big enough system, there's a second tier of insurance that your solar company usually goes ahead and just buys for your system. As like it's called a tier two system, and they'll typically just buy. I know we do. We just take care of that for our customers. We just look at their insurance, make sure they have homeowners insurance, and then we'll go ahead and quote and buy the policy for their system. So yeah, your systems are insured and taken care of. If you if you lease your system, that means you don't actually own it. So in the event that you do sign like a lease to buy your electricity, which is good for people who really want to pay nothing down and get the cheapest rate, get the lowest rates right away. In that case, the finance company owns the system and they put it right back on. So it's really a lot less liability and concern on somebody.
What haven't we covered? We're coming up on the end of our hour. What haven't we covered? What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't? Or just anything else, any other thoughts that we haven't
You
dealt with?
know, one big thing we didn't talk about is the federal tax incentives that come with your solar systems. Right now and through I think 2032, we have a 30% federal tax credit that really helps offset a huge amount of your solar system. So if you get a solar system and you purchase it, you get to take 30% of that and get it straight back in a tax credit. Tax credit and deduction is a little bit different. Your tax credit's a little bit more valuable because it actually dollar for dollar takes your tax burden down in that year, and it rolls over. So if you get a $30,000 system and say you finance it, you that year you get to put that on your taxes. You get $10,000 tax credit, which is huge. And you can, if you say you don't get that full 10,000 that year, you didn't know the government $10,000. That's awesome. Great for you. You don't lose that, right? You can roll that over the next year or the next year until you get your full credit. And then if you'll put that back in your system, you have the lowest payment you can work with.
Mhm.
So it's really, I mean, it's a huge benefit for people that who just don't know about and really don't understand. But yeah, that's a big one to talk about and talk about with people.
What if we got an administration, uh, presidential administration that's not very supportive of solar? Could they, if Congress agrees, could they cut the tax credit so that you might not even get it next year?
But one thing I can't do is I can't control the politics, and I mean that very well could be a situation that happens, which I mean is a really good reason to take advantage of it now. I know we got elections coming up in November, and you just don't know what the next um, administration is going to do, right? You really just don't know. So it is a good thing to hop on and take advantage of the benefits and incentives while they're in place. Because we just don't know how politics are going to affect those benefits.
All we know is it's going to change and keep changing and keep changing.
True.
So if somebody is well, is your footprint bigger than Tampa Bay?
Yes.
What's your footprint?
So we do all the way from, this whole area, we'll do anywhere in the state. It's a little bit more if you're, 200 miles away from the Tampa Bay area or Orlando. But we'll do all the way from, if you're south of I-10 down to really the Fort Myers area, like that's a pretty good spot all the way over to Orlando. That's a pretty good area for us to work in.
Okay. And how would people contact you if they wanted to reach out to you for more questions or to buy a system?
So you can just email me at russ@solarpowertampabay.com. It's all one word. Or you could give me a call or a text at 813-453-2586. Or you can check our website out at www.solarpowertampabay.com.
Got it. All right. Well, this has been real valuable. I really appreciate you being with us. Excuse me. To our viewers, if you want to find out more about OutMarket.Pro, go to our website, and we've got lots of different podcasts that we've done on various topics. And there is a thread. It's about people doing cool things and working with cool industries. Be sure to, we'll put Russ's contact information down in the show notes below so you can reach out to him. If you enjoy the episode, please like, subscribe, and click that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss an episode. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Russ, thank you so much for being with us. And we'll have to have you on maybe 3-6 months from now and see how the industry is building and how your business is building. So thanks so much again.
All right, great. Thanks, Mark. No, I appreciate the opportunity to get here and talk to you and be able to just share a little bit about solar today.
Awesome. So here's the Thrive outro, Libby. So thanks to Russ Terry for joining me today and sharing insights on solar and sustainable energy in general. To learn more about Russ, please look down in the show notes and you'll get his contact information down below that he just shared with you. So you can also find out more about our podcast and Thrive Co-Living Communities, in addition to our local location, Thrive Quail Forest in Tampa Bay. So if you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. We have lots of interesting people doing some really cool things. So be sure to tune in. And Russ, thanks again for joining us.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to just be here and talk about solar. It was great.